My name is Greg Hovey. I'll just tell you a quick story about how my wife and I came to be here in Mexico and came to be helping people with their medical insurance. So I was 38 years old and I had an agency up in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I realized that my dad was 38 when he got married and I didn't have anybody in my life. And so I went on Match.com before it was cool. And I met this girl who she was the state treasurer of Sonora, Mexico. And I thought that was really interesting. And so I sent her a long email in Spanish and she replied back in English. And I drove 7 hours for our first date. And 6 months later, we were married. We just celebrated our 17th anniversary last week. And when we first came down, we were really excited, to be helping people with their medical insurance. But back in those days, the options were so horrible. And if any of you have looked around before, you've probably seen the same type of thing. The only type of insurance that you could get down here were expensive expat major medical plans that could cost $500, $1,000 or more a month. And then you still had to pay all your medical expenses out of pocket and then fight with the insurance company to get reimbursed. Or else they had travel insurance plans that were really poor coverage with a lot of restrictions. They were very short-term in duration. It wasn't a good solution. And also you had to pay all your claims up front and then try to get reimbursed later, which is a big hassle. And then about 3.5 years ago, a friend of ours from church, she had Medicare, and she came to me and she said, "Greg, I've got this medical condition. I need to go to the hospital. What should I do?" And I said, "Well, go to the private hospital. It's the best one." And she went there and they wanted $20,000 up front, and she didn't have it. And so they sent her to the free hospital here, which is where we call the hospitals where people go to die. And they said that they couldn't help her. So she asked me for a ride to the bus station so she could bus it back up to Tucson, Arizona, 8 hours away. And she died on the bus. And when that happened, we were just devastated. And we realized, this should not be happening. And we heard lots of other stories of people that were not getting the kind of care that they needed. And so we started researching a little harder. And we came across this organization in Ajijic called Lakeside Medical Group. And we heard through Facebook that people were using their Medicare in Mexico. And me as a broker with a lot of experience, I said, that's not possible. Medicare cannot be used out of the United States. It sounds like fraud to me. And I wanted to research it. And so I flew down to Ajijic and I met with Dr. Ian. He's an American and he's a doctor down here. His wife's a doctor. They've been in business for over 12 years. They have over 12,000 members. And they were accepting U.S. insurance and they were accepting Medicare Advantage, and clients were having zero out-of-pocket costs and didn't have to pay anything up front. And I went down there and met with them, and it's all legitimate. And I talked to the people that have been using it, to the members, and they say, yes, it's fantastic. We have any emergency, we don't pay a penny, we get the best care possible. And so I've partnered with Lakeside for the past 3 years, and I make sure that everybody has insurance that they accept at the lowest cost. And so that's kind of my story. And I met you, of course, Mariana, through your mother-in-law, who does Panama relocation tours. And I just got back from Panama, helped out a lot of people there. But here in Mexico, we've got it so much better than they do in Panama and other countries because of Lakeside. And so I'll go into more detail about that as well.
Real quick, I'm going to show you guys on the screen how you can get in touch with Greg, because I want to put this up at the front. We're going to share it again at the end. But if you want to get in touch with Greg to give you a quote or help you out, figure out which Medicare Advantage plan is right for you or which one of these options that he's going to cover is right for you, this is how you get in touch with him. Greg at safetravelsinmexico.org. All right, Greg, take it away.
All right, so I've got a PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to go through here with you that'll help you out. A lot of us are visual and like to see stuff. So let me switch this.
And yes, feel free to start putting your comments or your questions in the comments section. We're going to go down the list and just cover as many as we can once we're done presenting.
So Mariana, can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, about 3 years ago, we started up the Safe Travels in Mexico Association in conjunction with Lakeside Medical Group, helping people find the most cost-effective way to get excellent care when they're in Mexico. And so we call this your passport to healthcare. I've told you a little bit about who I am. we're going to talk a little bit now about how Medicare works and how it doesn't work in Mexico. We'll talk more about Lakeside Medical Group, and then we'll show some of the options that Lakeside accepts, including Medicare Advantage, emergency medical plans, and expat major medical plans. So real quick, a briefer. Let me just give you a little lowdown on how Medicare works. And for this is going to be review for most of you. But as you probably know, when you turn 65, if you've worked 40 quarters in the United States, you automatically get Part A, and it's free, the hospital plan. You need to opt in for Part B, which is the medical plan. Then we have different parts, like Part C, which is Medicare Advantage. That's private insurance that's authorized by Medicare. We're going to talk a lot about that this morning. And then Part D is prescription medication. And then you have all the Medigap or the supplement plans, the F, Gs, Ns, Ks, Ls, etc. And we'll touch on each of these a little bit. So the main thing we're going to talk about is Medicare Advantage, Part C. And Medicare Advantage Part C, it combines, basically it replaces your Part A and Part B. It includes Part D, plus it has extra benefits. Now, most of these extra benefits are benefits that you can only use in the United States, like comprehensive dental, comprehensive vision, hearing aids, things like that, wellness, free wellness, stuff like that. But there's one extra benefit that's of crucial importance to us, and that is global emergency coverage on a reimbursement basis. That meaning that you can go and have, if you have any medical emergency anywhere in the world, you can go to whatever doctor, whatever hospital you want, you pay the bill, and then the Advantage company will reimburse you. And then we'll talk a little bit how you don't have to do it on a reimbursement basis here in Mexico because of Lakeside. So Medicare Advantage Part C is private insurance plans approved by Medicare. So when you heard before, just like I did, that Medicare does not work in Mexico, that's absolutely correct. Original Medicare does not work in Mexico. But Medicare Advantage Part C is private insurance that is approved by Medicare, and that is something that you can use outside of the United States. So there are some differences between original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. And I'm not here to convince anybody to get one plan or the other. Certainly there are situations where everyone's situation is a little bit different. But so I'm going to compare and contrast a few differences between the two so that you can see that if Advantage is a good fit for you. First, with original Medicare, Part A and B, you can go to whatever doctor, whatever hospital you want in the United States without penalty and without referral. That's awesome. But it's not such a big deal to you. And with Medicare Advantage, one of the things is it's a regional plan. And so you have a service area, a large geographical area surrounding your principal Medicare address. And so one of the requirements is that you have a U.S. residential address. For example, me, I spend a lot of my time down here in Mexico. So my permanent address is in Arizona, where my mom lives. That's my permanent address. Your network, you have an in-network providers where you have low or no cost copays, and out-of-network providers, you can end up paying higher copays. So yes, you could continue to go to whatever doctor, whatever hospital you want, but if they're not in the network, it could cost more money. One of the nice things about Medicare Advantage is there is no annual deductible. You have a zero deductible, and the copays are low or nothing, depending on the situation. Prescription coverage is covered in the United States under these plans, which is your Part D. However, getting your meds down here to Mexico is up to you. I don't have a lot of guidance for you on that. Some people have their friends bring it down. Some of them have other ways to get their meds down here. A lot of people, their meds are so cheap here over the counter that they just get them here in Mexico. And then these are the extra benefits that these plans include. They have comprehensive dental, vision, hearing, gym memberships, over-the-counter allowance. They'll reimburse you for your aspirins and Pepto. In certain areas, in the more populated areas in the United States, where there's a lot of competition between plans, some of the plans even offer Part B givebacks where they pay for part of your Part B. They reimburse you. It's added onto your Social Security check every month. And so they have an incentive to keeping you healthy and to avoid medical expenses. Most plans are 0 monthly premium. The only time that you would ever have a premium for one of these plans would be if you wanted extra good dental or something like that, which people rarely get. Depends on the zip code that you register with Medicare for your principal address. So what these Advantage plans offer you is the better plans is up to $500,000 in coverage per year on a reimbursement basis globally. You pay the cost of the hospital and file the claim, or you work with a medical biller or hospital and doctors willing to wait for months for Medicare reimbursements, and that's where Lakeside comes in. There's no 60-day limitation like with the supplements and Medigap plans. The best plans out there only offer $50,000 lifetime in emergency coverage, which Lakeside says is not enough, which is why they don't recommend them. So they don't have those limitations. Some plans have annual limits. I can help you find a plan that doesn't. There's no deductible for emergency and urgent care. So it's really important to understand then what an emergency is and what an emergency isn't, because Lakeside only handles emergencies, and your coverage through Medicare Advantage is only for emergencies. So it is a little subjective. I looked at the definition one time and it said something like when you feel that your immediate health is in jeopardy. Well, when you feel, that's very subjective, right? But to make it a little more clear, anything you normally call 911 for, or go to the emergency room for, a heart attack, a stroke, getting hit by a bus, you stub your toe and it might be broken, you're having trouble breathing, you have COVID, anything like that you normally go to the ER for, these are considered emergencies. Here on the list here, you'll see these are some of them that are considered, life and limb type of emergencies. But these are not just life and limb emergencies. They're also things you might go to urgent care for. And here's a list of just examples of things that are also considered emergencies, though they might not be life-threatening. Excuse me. So the way that Medicare Advantage works is your Part B premium is taken out of your Social Security check every month, and it's paid to Medicare. And then Medicare then pays the Advantage plans a monthly fee, regardless of whether claims are filed or not. Sorry. And there are no premiums. They're already paid by Medicare. Now, let's talk for a minute about supplements, because people get sometimes confused between supplements and Advantage plans. Supplements, you have a monthly premium. They can be expensive, between $100 and $450 a month. These are the plan Fs, G, N, K, L, etc. Some of them offer coverage outside the US, but it's very limited. It's not enough, and Lakeside doesn't accept it. And so if you, I do run into clients sometimes, I'd say probably about 10% of my clients, when they have a really robust, great supplement plan that they got from their employer, maybe they're a government employee or they work for a big company and they have this great plan, that they don't want to lose that plan. For those people, I have a standalone plan that has nothing to do with Medicare, that only covers emergencies, that you can use in addition to your supplement. So if you want to keep your supplement, there is a way to do that. And we can go over that here in a little bit. So again, going back to Medicare Advantage, you have unlimited worldwide emergency and urgent care, no copays, no monthly premiums. You have coverage for Part A, B, and D in the service area. So let's talk about this. So if all of your emergencies will be handled while you're in Mexico or outside of the United States. But for non-emergencies, you can either pay cash for them down here in Mexico, or you can go back to the States. Let's go over some examples of these. Wellness and preventative care. Well, down here in Mexico, you can see a specialist for $50, so it's not a big deal. Most people just go ahead and have their wellness done down here, or else they do it once a year when they go back up to the United States. Scheduled surgeries are not covered. So if your doctor said to you, that hip's wearing out, it's time to replace it, that's not an emergency. You'll have to go back to the US for that. But if you broke that same hip, that would be an emergency and that would be covered. The biggest non-emergency that's important that is not covered down here is cancer. And so God forbid if you got cancer, that's something that you would have to go back up to the US and get treated. So with all these plans, you have large, established, nationwide, reliable insurance companies you've heard of. They pay their claims in full and on time, large network of doctors. You have doctors in your service area and prescription coverage, and it's compatible with Lakeside Medical Group, which we'll talk about here more in a minute. So what does it take to be qualified for Medicare Advantage? Well, you have to have been a U.S. resident and worked 40 quarters in the U.S. by the time you're 65. And that way you'll automatically get Part A. You have to opt in for Part B. And you have to have a U.S. principal address registered with Medicare that establishes your service area. And it can't be a P.O. box. Your enrollment periods, we have an annual open enrollment. So if you have original Medicare right now, or if you have a supplement right now, or even if you just have Part A, you need to bring that Part B current. You need to contact Medicare and re-enroll in Part B. Then your annual enrollment period will be between November 1st and December 7th. And so then we can move you over to a Medicare Advantage plan, and then your plan would go into effect January 1st. And so you're probably wondering, what am I going to do now? I need coverage now. Don't worry. I have a standalone plan through United Healthcare that will cover you for emergencies, and it also includes Airvac back to the States. And so we can get you set up on a low-cost short-term plan. Use this as a gap until you get your Medicare Advantage in place. There are some special enrollment periods. So if you don't have Medicare Advantage right now, in certain instances, you can get it now. If you're changing your service address, for example, is one of those instances. And if you have questions on this, I'll be able to answer all these for you when we meet one-on-one. So as Mariana said, you can make a phone appointment with me anytime by sending me an email to greg@safetravelsinmexico.org. And I'll look at your specific situation, answer all your questions and concerns, and help recommend a plan. The actual application process is really easy. It just takes a few minutes. It takes about 7 to 10 days to get you approved. You register online and you download your cards, and then we get you set up with Lakeside, which takes about 7 days to get you set up with them. And then if you do have a Medigap, a supplement plan right now, you don't want to cancel that until after you receive notification of your approval. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Lakeside Medical Group, and then I'll get into the Atlas plan, which is through United Healthcare. So Lakeside they're based out of Ajijic, where they have their own clinic, and then they have participating clinics and hospitals throughout Mexico. I'm up here in lovely San Carlos, Sonora, and we're just opening up a brand new clinic here in San Carlos here this month. And our participating hospital is SEMA Hospital in Hermosillo, Sonora, which is the best hospital in our state. And you can see we have various locations all over. A common question that people ask is, gosh, what happens if I'm outside of a service area and I have an emergency? Which is a great question. My wife and I, we travel a lot. And this summer we drove, 6,000 miles all over Mexico, all the way down to the Yucatan and back. And so we went in and out of lakeside areas. I didn't have to memorize where all the clinics were or anything. If I ever have a medical emergency, I call Lakeside. The phone is answered 24/7 by an American speaking English. And I would tell them where I was and what was going on. They're happy to send an ambulance 3-4 hours if necessary. But in certain remote areas, I might have to go somewhere else. If I went to a different hospital, not in the network, then I would pay the bill myself. And then me as a broker, I would help you get reimbursed from the insurance company. But it would be outside of Lakeside. And in the same way that we would handle it if something happened to you in another country. So in the event of something major happening, Lakeside, they provide total managed hospital and medical care services for patients with U.S. insurance or Medicare Advantage, all the way from admission to discharge. They manage your care. They work with all the doctors. They get you all the specialists you need, so you don't have to worry about all that stuff. They pay the providers and hospital at the time of care, and then they bill your insurance company directly. They get reimbursed later, months later, at a higher rate. They get reimbursed not for the actual cost, but at the Medicare reimbursement rate, which is higher than the original cost. That's their profit. And we want them to be profitable. That's how they offer all these great services for us. That way, you don't have to file any claims, and you avoid the potentially complicated and lengthy process. And it's not potentially, it's complicated and it's lengthy, and it's a pain in the butt, really. So it's a fantastic service they offer, and it doesn't cost us anything. Membership and registration are free. Membership and registration are free. There are no hidden charges. There are no deductibles, no co-insurance. The only co-pays that you would ever have if you had to visit their clinic and you were not admitted overnight, you pay $5. And if you spent the night in their hospital, it's $100. They accept over 350 different insurance plans, including Medicare Advantage, TRICARE, Champ VA, Blue Cross, Aetna, and many, many more. They have access to all the different types of specialists that you might need. You'll get a card that looks like this. And so if you ever had a medical emergency, you just call one of these numbers right here. Like I said, it's going to be answered by an American. And then they will send an ambulance, or you can go yourself to the hospital and check yourself in at the ER. All you have to do is show your card. You're not going to have to pay any money up front or ever. So if you had qualifying insurance, you can go ahead and apply for membership at lakemedicalgroup.com. And this is their phone number, and you can send them email information. But most of us probably on this call don't have qualifying coverage yet, or you don't know if you do. And so you'll want to set up an appointment with me first. When you do go to Lakeside's website, you'll see, and you click on the application, you'll see it might have some old information like this saying that they're waiting list. Don't worry about that. Go ahead and apply. And because you're working with me, I'll be able to get you in there quicker. And so that kind of begs the question, what if you don't qualify for Medicare? What if you're younger than 65? What if you're not an American citizen? I have a lot of Canadians and other nationalities that I work with. Or what if you have a Medicare supplement that you love and you don't want to drop it? Well, then we have a great plan through United Healthcare that's called Atlas International. And first, let me just take you here to my website, which is safetravelsinmexico.org. And if you come here, you'll probably get a pop-up asking you to join our mailing list. You can X out of that, and then you can read up a little bit about our association if you like to. And then down near the bottom, you'll see that there are 3 plans that are highlighted. The one that I'm going to talk to you about here today is the one that 95% of my clients go with, which is called the Atlas International. It's the most popular plan. It'll cover you up to $100,000 for any unexpected emergencies while you're in Mexico. I need to update this. It actually covers you $1 million for medical air evac back to the United States, which is very important. Occasionally, I have a client who, gosh, something happens, it's so bad that their doctor says, it'd be best if you were treated in the United States. And so this plan also includes air evac back to the United States, hospital to hospital, to the hospital of your choice. It's guaranteed issue, which is great, which means that you don't have to qualify for it. Most of the travel plans out there, they don't cover pre-existing conditions, but this plan is unique in that it covers acute onset of pre-existing conditions, except for chronic and congenital conditions. And so if you had a flare-up of a pre-existing condition, that would be covered too. That's important to like for someone like me. Like I get respiratory issues sometimes because I have allergies and asthma. And so if I ever have respiratory issues, the insurance company is not going to say, hey, that's a pre-existing condition, you're not covered, which is great. And so if you have any questions on your own pre-existing conditions, how those would be handled, I'll be happy to answer those for you one-on-one. And then here you can see just how low cost this plan is. If you're 40 years old, it's only $37 a month. If you're 50 years old, it's $59 a month. 60 years old, $71 a month. And the most expensive it ever gets is $144 a month. So very affordable, great coverage, and it's with United Healthcare, a great company that pays their bills on time.
And also you have to keep in mind that, this is for what we were talking about earlier was Medicare Advantage. This covers Canadians, Europeans, also U.S. citizens who may not qualify for Medicare Advantage, might not be 65 or older, or, might not have it because of whatever reason. So this is for everyone else who's looking to get covered in Mexico. Keep in mind.
Exactly. And so for myself and my wife and I, when we turn 65, we'll probably get a Medicare Advantage plan. But until then, we're going to use this plan. It's called the Atlas International through United Healthcare. And if you're on my website and you says click here for quote, of course I'm happy to do this for you. But if you just want to play with it, it'll bring you to the screen right here. You're going to exclude coverage for the U.S. If you're an American, then you still get 2 weeks of coverage per quarter in the U.S. So like for me, I can still go up and visit my mom, and I can go up to Tucson and go shopping. And I have coverage outside of Mexico, but it is subject to the deductible. And then here you'll put your destination as Mexico, and you put where you're from here. If you're a Canadian, then you would choose Canada, but I'm going to do it just as if I was an American. And then when you need coverage, this is very flexible coverage. You have to know your start date, though, but you could start tonight at midnight if you wanted to. And then if you're like me, I get an annual plan. But let's say that you're only here for 3 months in Mexico for three months, then you just pick a plan according to your needs. But I'm going to pick an annual plan. And then I'll put my birthday in here. $1967. And then I'll click next. Now it's going to give you a couple different options here, depending on your age. If you're under 65, you'll have options between $50,000 and $250,000. Or sorry, let me restate. If you're under 65, you'll have options between $50,000 and $2 million. $250,000 is by far the most you would ever need. So any more than that, you would be overinsured. If you're over 65, the most it'll allow is $100,000. And when you're 80 years old, then you're no longer eligible for this plan. And so at that point, all I have is Air-Evac coverage alone. But so if you were under 65 like me, then I would choose $250,000. And then you can choose your deductibles. Now, if it wasn't for Lakeside, this plan would cost me, with a zero deductible plan, would cost me $1,705 a year. But because Lakeside will cover my deductible, I get a $5,000 deductible, and I only pay $819.84 a year for my insurance. And this is the only insurance that I have. Now, this though does beg the question. So, Greg, what happens if I get cancer? Because this plan doesn't cover cancer. What if I got cancer? Well, in the old days, I would have said, you know what? You need to have as a backup an ACA plan, an Affordable Care Act plan, also known as Obamacare, back in the United States, just in case. And that's what we used to do. So we were spending hundreds of dollars a month on this ACA plan that we never used. Then I discovered that there's a little loophole in the ACA. There's a special enrollment period. If you're moving back to the United States, that is a special enrollment period. So if I was diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, I could move back to the United States and get an ACA plan tomorrow and get my cancer treated in the United States. And then as soon as it was done, I could drop that plan and come on back down to Mexico, no problem. So now Canadians don't always have that option. Just as an example, depending on what province you're from and how long you've been out of Canada, you might not be able to just hop right back in. And so maybe this plan might not be the best option for you. I do have more comprehensive expat major medical plans, but they get expensive. And they will cover things that this plan doesn't. But you just kind of have to weigh for yourself whether it makes sense to spend more money on premium to have better coverage when you may not need that coverage.
Yeah, this is great information. A lot of people are just saying that in the comments, so thank you, Greg.
Yeah, you bet. So let me do this. Let me stop screen sharing. Okay, and now I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. Man, are there a lot of them. So thank you so much for that. Yes, you guys, this is regardless of whether you are from Canada, from Europe, from the United States, or from another country. There's a really good question here, Greg. What about these travel plans, if you live in basically, are there any exclusions that private medical insurance plans or travel insurance plans or Medicare Advantage plans, if you live or require service in a state department designated do not travel area?
Okay, that is a great question. And so, yes, this Atlas plan will offers global coverage on a reimbursement basis, except for Afghanistan, North Korea, and the Ukraine. I hope that does not interfere with your travel plans.
So Mexico's fine, even if it's on the do not travel State
Yep,
Department list. Okay,
absolutely correct.
good to know. See, I'm trying to go through what is hellos and what is questions. Hello, I am 54 and have a Medicare Advantage due to disability. I pay nothing for healthcare here in the United States. What will the situation be like when, they move to Mexico?
Okay, Martha. So that's great that you already have Medicare Advantage. So there are certain carriers that are better than others. And so when you and I talk one-on-one, if you want to send me an email, just for example, we can start talking about it. If you have a good plan, I'm going to say, you know what, you've got a good plan. You don't need to make any changes. All you would have to do is apply at lakemedicalgroup.com. In fact, you could apply right now and they'll tell you right now. If you unfortunately have one of those plans that they don't accept, there are a couple carriers out there. I don't like to badmouth carriers, so I'm not going to mention any names right now. But if you have one of these plans that they're not very good with claims, then I could help you switch to another plan. And actually, right now, this month is the time when you could switch from one plan to another. So it'd be a great time for you to send me an email, and I'd be happy to take a look at what you got. And I know you don't know me very well yet. My motivation is to help people. And so I'm not going to switch you unless you need to be switched. You can be sure of that. And so a lot of what I do is just telling people, you know what, you're fine where you are. You don't have to make any changes.
And he helps a lot of people, you guys. I mean, Lakeside has them do presentations for their entire members on an ongoing basis. And they're very, very, very happy with Greg. So they would not recommend him if he wasn't helping their members. Can you get a policy that covers you while you're living in Mexico and occasional visits to the United States and Canada? So I guess this is
Yes.
kind of like
Okay.
what we're talking about, right? That loophole, if in case you're
Yeah.
gonna go
And so, Linda, I'm not sure your age. If you're under 65, then you could get the Atlas plan, like my wife and I have, and that covers you here in Mexico, and that covers your occasional visits to the U.S. It covers you 2 weeks per quarter in the United States. If you're going to be spending longer than 2 weeks at a time, then I would help you find a plan that would cover you for that time, so you wouldn't have any gaps in your coverage.
And again, his email address is on the screen for everybody, Greg at safetravelsinmexico.org, or safetravelsinmexico.org is his website. Okay, next question here. My health insurance for me and my husband is expensive, $325 a month. Can't use it in Mexico. We are moving to Mexico soon. Should I drop my US insurance and get private health insurance in Mexico instead?
Yeah, when you aren't going to want to drop your current coverage until you leave the United States. So if you know the date that you're leaving, you can send a letter to your health insurance company, quitting your coverage the day that you're leaving, and let's talk before then, so that I'll have you set up as something so that the second you cross the border, you'll have coverage in place.
Thank you so much. Thank you for offering this. We are considering permanent residency and ran into a snag with affordable health care. I'm 62, my spouse is 77. Options, no Advantage plans, please. So that's where your Atlas is going to come in.
Yeah, and so if you don't want an Advantage plan, that's fine. There are other plans that Lakeside accepts, and for both of you, my recommendation would be the same plan that my wife and I are on, that Atlas plan that we talked about. It's good until you're 80 years old, and so what we can do for you is we can time it right so that you can apply the day before your 80th birthday, and so you'll be able to have it until you're 81 years old. And then after that, all I have is Aerovac. Though I will mention that Lakeside and I are working on a plan right now for people that can't get any insurance. So we are working on our own in-house plan, It's something I hope to have within the next year, and surely by the time that you turn 80 years old.
That's amazing. Yeah, very needed. Hi, Kim. So she's 63, diagnosed with slightly elevated blood pressure. Since diet change, her blood pressure is normal. That's awesome. Congrats. Do I share information with insurance representative? If so, will this keep me from having private insurance?
Okay, another great question. You always want to be honest with your broker. I'm here to help you. Um, Both with Medicare Advantage is not underwritten, so everyone is qualified. It doesn't matter about your pre-existing conditions. With the Atlas plan through United Healthcare, it is guaranteed issue. It is not underwritten. Your blood pressure will not be an issue whatsoever. If you had any claim, like a heart condition claim or something like that, because this plan covers flare-ups of pre-existing conditions, you will have no trouble with this whatsoever.
For those who are wondering what Lakeside Medical Group is, I do have their website up in the comments, lakemedicalgroup.com. And great question. Does Lakeside Medical Group cover people living outside the Lake Chapala area?
Yes, we have clinics and hospitals throughout Mexico. If you go to lakemedicalgroup.com, you'll see that there's a link there that will show you all the places that they have clinics and hospitals. So yes, they do. And if you're like I said, they're happy to send an ambulance, 3-4 hours even if necessary, if you're outside of one of their areas. And if I'm ever traveling and I go to an area that's outside of their network, I still have coverage through my insurance. It's just not going to be with Lakeside. So I would have to pay the bill myself. And then me as your broker, I would help you get reimbursed from the insurance company.
Harold has a comment more than a question. The Medicare Advantage plans offered in his area of Nebraska aren't good.
And that's a comment that I hear. It's not just about Nebraska. There are a lot of areas in the United States, especially rural areas, where there are few or really no options when it comes to Medicare Advantage. You might want to consider establishing a different residential address in the United States. And I can't go into much more detail than that, but if you had a different address, I could show you the plans that were available in that area.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who have done that. And there's a loophole. Harold, I know you're one of our customers, so if you want to email me, info@mexicorelocationguide.com, I can give you some pointers there. President who bounces back and forth from the USA and Mexico because of work and has private insurance from the USA currently. I think we've touched on this already, just what we've kind of reiterated. So I think we've touched on this already.
Yeah, and let's talk one-on-one though, because depending on how much time you spend in the U.S. Versus Mexico, I'll have some recommendations for you that'll save you some money.
Great. What about I know that this question may come up later and it's not really being asked right now, but do you need to live in Mexico for a specific amount of time? Do you need to stay in Mexico for a specific amount of time?
No.
Do you ever get
the shortest plan, the Atlas plan, the shortest plan you can get is for 5 days. And Lakeside, they really don't want to mess with it unless you're going to be here for 3 months. But I can still insure you, and so yeah, I've got something for everybody. The only people that I can't help is if you are a Mexican national and you have no other citizenship. I can't help you.
Got it. Yeah. So very, very important for you to know that. For example, I have a U.S. passport and a Mexican passport. I could still get insured through Greg's website or through this Atlas plan. But if I only had a Mexican passport, I would not be able to get that insurance. And it makes sense. There's got to be like a conflict of interest there.
Right.
Can you please repeat your email? It's on the screen, Greg at safetravelsinmexico.org. .org. So make sure it's not .com. And we're also going to put it in the chat. I'm also going to share his website one more time so you guys can have that on the screen. safetravelsinmexico.org. Okay. Make sure you guys check it out. The plan you said for Canada does not work according to your website if you are physically located in the country of Canada at the time of purchase, and this policy is prohibited and must be canceled.
Okay, and so Canada is a little funny, and there are a couple states in the United States as well that do this. And so, yes, if you are currently physically in Canada and you wanted to follow the rules, then you would wait until you left Canada and then immediately sign up for this. They're just going by your word for it, whether you're physically in Canada or not. I'm not encouraging you to do anything unethical.
Yeah. And the reason probably being that Canada offers, that social medical free healthcare, basically. So again, it would be a conflict. It's another similar, I just tried to get a quote, but was declined due to living in Washington State. Any alternatives?
Yeah, and that's the same situation with Washington State. I have
Okay.
lots of clients in Washington State. You just click past it there and just continue on. It's not a big deal.
So what happens if you're 80 years old and living in Mexico?
Yeah, and so that's a great question. If you are an American and you can have Medicare Advantage, that's your best option, probably your only option at that point. If you're not, if you are Canadian, you can get comprehensive expat major medical plans until you're 75 years old. So if you're under 75, that may want to be an option that you look at, and I have those plans for you. They are more expensive if you're looking for a permanent solution. If you're, and then as I mentioned, Lakeside and I, we're working on putting together our own in-house plan because there are no insurers that want to touch a plan like this, but we could do it ourselves in-house. And so that's something that we're working on.
Yeah. And just keep in mind when he says 75, you get grandfathered in after 75, but you won't be able to be a new customer after 75. So, you won't get canceled after 75, but you can't sign up as a new customer after 75. Um, so, do you ever have people who live in Panama part time, Costa Rica part time, Mexico part time, and they're just kind of moving around different countries? And at that point, what would you recommend?
Yeah, the same plans that we're recommending here, it would be for that situation. So both the Advantage plans and the Atlas plan are global plans. The difference is when you're in Mexico, you can use Lakeside. You don't have to do it on a reimbursement basis, and Lakeside pays all your deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance. If you're outside of Mexico, then it's on a reimbursement basis.
Yep. So at that point, would you suggest that they just select the amount of time they're going to be in each country? Like if I'm only going to be in Costa Rica for 3 months, I select it for 3 months. Then I'm going to move to Mexico.
No,
No, you
no,
just base it.
yeah, so like on the application, like if you're running a quote, you'll see what's your primary destination. Well, my primary destination is Mexico, but I can go anywhere. I didn't have to notify them when I went to Panama. It's just they just kind of want to keep track of where most people are going.
Okay. Okay. Now somebody has a question about enrolling in Medicare. If I move before end of year and switch to another Advantage plan, would it be advantageous? I'm assuming I'd have to wait until Medicare open enrollment, and maybe you can touch on this again.
Move before the end of the year and switch to another.
So I guess they're wondering if they have to wait for that open enrollment or can
No, oh
basically.
yeah, okay, I understand the question now. No, there's a special enrollment period which is switching your area. So if you are moving, absolutely, I can do that at any time. Just send me an email. We'll set up an appointment, and I'll show you the plans available in that area, and we'll make a choice then.
Is Lakeside Medical accepting new people in Merida?
Um, yeah, we can get you in. There's not a whole lot of coverage, but I do have some clients in Merida.
Okay. And there are a couple of waiting periods, right? Like they're not waiting periods, but there's a wait list for a few places. Can you repeat those again?
Yeah, you won't have to worry about waiting lists if you're my client.
Okay,
I
there you
do a
go.
lot. I do a lot for Lakeside, and so they do a lot for me.
Okay, okay. That's good to know. Okay, you guys. Well, it sounds like a lot of these other questions that you guys have are basically just on top of questions that have already been answered. So just get in touch, please, with Greg at safetravelsinmexico.org. I want to thank you all for being here. If you are a Mexico Relocation Guide supporter, follower. Thank you so much. And if you're a customer, I highly appreciate your trust in our online guide. You will find contacts like Greg and then a variety of other contacts in the online guide, from immigration assistance to rental assistance to helping you move your pets to helping you move yourself to helping you bring your car down to helping you get a driver's license, get situated, get utility set up. I mean, there's so many contacts in the online guide that we help you set up with so that your move is a lot easier. And Greg is just a small piece in the puzzle of you moving to Mexico the right way. So Greg, thank you so much for this awesome live stream.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me. And I look forward to speaking with anybody that has any questions. If you email me, I'll call you right back.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'll see you guys soon in the next live stream. Greg, thank you again.
You bet. Bye-bye.